All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on this this Monday night. I really appreciate it. And I am so happy to have Gretchen Menn here with me tonight. So, Gretchen, thank you so much for joining on the show.
So, my pleasure. Thank you so much. You're one of my favorite fellow geeks.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. So, for people who don't know, Gretchen is just a killer guitarist and based in California. And she plays with a Led Zeppelin cover band called Zepparella. I've seen them twice, and they are powerful. It's an awesome band, and Gretchen's solo music, which we've just heard a little bit of, is very, very special to me. So I hope we can talk a little more about that. So Gretchen, again, thank you for joining. Can you give yourself a little bit of an intro for people who may be new to your music?
Oh, well, first, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like I'm terrible at intros. It's like mine, like, or doing a bio. It's like, Gretchen Menn is a guitar player who tries hard. It's like, that's all I got. No, I mean, you said a lot of it. My fun day job is I play in Zepparella. I do various other things. I just got done shooting a video for Acoustic Guitar magazine. I do some lessons for them and various other things. But what you played, or what my biggest focus is writing, composition, and my solo stuff.
Excellent. And what we heard was a song called Tempest off of the album Abandon All Hope, which is kind of a dark title. However,
Really?
however, and I know that we can go here with Gretchen because if you follow her on Twitter or if you know her, she loves philosophy, reads a lot of very interesting books, Daily Stoic included in that list. And there's this guy I've been following for a while. He's kind of a philosophy weirdo, total extremist in the word truth with the capital T. And he says hope is just one side of a sheet of paper that has disappointment on the other side. And he says abandon any hope or feelings of failure because that will not aid you in becoming great at anything. So I'm curious if abandon all hope is kind of a hat tip to not allowing yourself to be caught up in optimism or something like that. So care to share a little behind that title?
Oh man, I wish I could say that it was that philosophical. No, it's so the album is a concept album and it's based on Dante's Inferno. So I took the line from a line in Dante.
Okay.
It's like, abandon all hope, all ye who enter
Oh,
here.
that's right. Why didn't I go there first?
Oh, so much cooler. Well, no, and actually, because I struggled too with the darkness of the name. I mean, not that I'm afraid of the dark. I am plenty sick and twisted, but in general, I'm not a very dark person.
Right.
And I did wonder, is it too dark? And actually, where I made friends with it was sort of from a philosophical place of like, well, perhaps, I mean, obviously it links to Dante. It needed to link to Dante for me. But also thinking, well, to your point, what is hope without work and dedication and, taking the steps to manifest what your desires are? So that maybe there is a little bit of that in terms of how I wrap my mind around naming my album something so incredibly depressing sounding.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great music on this album. It is a little bit dark. And one thing that Gretchen and I have in common is a love for classical and orchestral music and scores. So I definitely want to delve into some of that. But talk a little about your background with composition, arrangement, because what we just heard is not a typical guitar instrumental track. There's real orchestral instruments, and the guitar is not like, let me play guitar over an orchestra. It's let me play guitar alongside these orchestral instruments. So talk a little about your composition process and what you were trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, sure. So that particular track, I mean, as you said, the album is pretty dark overall because the subject matter, it's a concept album. If we're talking about a journey through the underworld, like, it's dark. um, that particular piece was based on the circle that was Francesca and Paolo. And when I was trying to figure out how I was going to approach this material, it's like, how do you just not have it sound like different versions of fire and brimstone? And, it's like, it's going to be 11 tracks of just different types of awfulness. Or, so I was trying to look for what differentiated each individual location or each individual vignette. So that one I kind of played to the star-crossed aspect of the two characters in it a little. So I have sort of a tango-y type, feel here and there, with something, to me, it's sort of the guitar and violin intertwining. So from a philosophical standpoint, it's very much driven by the concept. From a technical musical standpoint, I knew when I started, so Michael Melenda, who's a great friend, he used to be the editor, was the longest editor-in-chief of Guitar Player magazine. Now he's working with his own thing, Guardians of Guitar, and I believe he's now doing Modern Drummer. But he approached me, having heard one particular track on my first album, and said, don't you want to do something that's not just your typical guitar instrumentals? And I was like, well, funny you should say that. Like, I'm planning on doing something that kind of combines like my love of literature with instrumentals. And he was like, smacks down Dante's Inferno, a journey in 11 different musical moods. And I'm like, that is going to be so much more tangible than J.D. Salinger's 9 short stories. Which, by the way, Alexander Zerner did a killer album of that. But I didn't
Really?
know that.
Oh, wow.
So in tackling Dante and realizing that I was going to tackle Dante, I studied music in school. I have my bachelor's in music. And so, I took a class in counterpoint and harmony and theory and all of that stuff. But, taking a class in it does not mean like you know how to just do counterpoint now, or that you just know how to orchestrate for things, especially when you're combining an instrument that's not part of the normal stuff that gets orchestrated together. I mean, a lot of people have written for orchestra, and there are certain conventions that work, and certain things that are outside of those conventions, but it's tried and tested and true. Whereas adding electric guitar is a whole other level. So I started with trying to get to deepen my knowledge and my ability for a higher level of composition. And I continue to study very seriously. And I worked with a teacher, Elizabeth Erickson, an amazing teacher. Started studying there's wonderful resources online. Thomas Goss. If you don't know Thomas Goss's videos, oh my God, you will love them.
Oh, okay.
It's such a rabbit hole. It was why I signed up for Patreon. I binged on his orchestration videos. I think I watched like 30 of them in a weekend, and I'm like, I should give this dude some money. Like, he's so cool. So he has great orchestration videos. I've got like a whole bookshelf. Let's see if you can see right there.
Yep.
This is all scores and music books. These are all orchestration and theory books.
Oh, wow.
I'm not saying I've read every single one of them, but I intend to.
Yeah, people don't buy them, if they're not intrinsically motivated and interested. It's like
right.
People will say the most likely person to buy a parenting book is someone who cares about parenting. It's like it doesn't even matter if they read the book. They're probably going to be a better parent just because they're buying and paying for the books. And I know, we can all hear and you bear witness to your knowledge in this area. So I think it's more than just virtue signaling from Gretchen Menn.
Look at all my books, everybody.
I'm so smart.
Look at how smart I am. Maybe any more pretentious?
Do you? Okay, so you have to have the Slanimsky book, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I do. Do you carry it wherever you go, like Frank Zappa did?
In my back pocket. Yeah. No, actually, I haven't even really dived into it, but I do have it.
It's so big. Yeah, no kidding. Awesome. So, one thing I love about your playing on this album in particular is your tone. Now, a lot of a lot of guitarists, they'll do this kind of, and I'm guilty of it too. I've done a lot of Bach stuff, and I'm like, oh, I want to do like a hard rock kind of thing. Your tone is so appropriate. Like you would not guess it's not already a part of an orchestra. It doesn't stand out like, oh, here's the distorted guitar. I mean, certainly it's mixed more front and center, and it is a focal point of your arrangements. But I love that you have kind of an understated tone. It's still a rock tone. It's still distorted. There's gain, but it's not Yngwie Malmsteen, you know. And so, can you talk a little about your approach to the instrument as part of the orchestra?
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, thank you. That means a lot. I did pay attention to that aspect. So I bought the parenting book on how not to step all over your other instruments. Um, no, I recorded myself last. So I wanted to have all the other instruments there because I knew I could be the most flexible and I could spend the time in the studio to, to really figure out what was going to work. So what I did is, because the album is long and it's difficult and it's composed, and, people ask if I'm ever going to perform it live, and I would like to. And then I think about rehearsing it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared.
Yeah, no kidding.
But what I did is for just financial purposes, because actually imagining going into the studio and trying to lay down all of these tracks in, a few days or a week, it's like either something was going to suffer. So what I did is I reamped everything. So what I did is I set up my rig in my garage, and I came up with a tone that was about what I imagined it would be, just so that my touch and my attack were going to be appropriate. And then I got my tracks at home, and then I took them, and then I got a direct signal too. And so then I took that into the studio, and I auditioned my amps and just, brought all of them in, reamped them, messed around with mics and tried to find a tone specifically, like you said, that blended well, that added its own character, but didn't just sound like this non sequitur, like who invited her,
Can you clarify for people what reamping is?
Okay, yeah, sure. It's like so incredibly helpful for saving money.
Yeah.
So what it is basically you take a direct signal out of, in your interface somewhere. I've got a radial reamping kit, and you split the signal. You run one through like your amp and your rig, and
you mean a guitar signal?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the guitar signal, and then you're still getting the direct signal. So basically, just the pure like plinkety plink sounds awful by itself. But then what you can do is you can do your takes at home. So when for me, I try not to do like millions of takes, or I feel like I start losing any good mojo. But sometimes I'll take like a long break, or I'll be like, hey, I need to practice this more. I'll be back in an hour. And so you get your takes at home, and then what you can do is you have your scratch tone, your tone that's kind of close. You can listen to how things are working. You can decide, okay, this tone's pretty close, or maybe I want something a little cleaner. I did lean towards cleaner than I thought I was. And anyway, so then you take that direct signal, as like an audio track, you take it to a proper studio with all of the good equipment and the microphones and the console and the compressors and preamps, and you say, I've got my takes. And then what you do is you run that take, the direct signal through your amps. And so it's like, it's basically the same signal as would come out of your guitar, only you have the take. And then you can get into the tones, which I like it not only because it's very cost effective, but it also helps me be a little bit more objective when I'm determining tone. I think it's very easy to be distracted by what is a comfortable tone to play. It's like, a lot of gain, really compressed. And then you actually hear it and you're like, well, gosh, it's so compressed that it's lacking some personality, or the gain is just a little bit abrasive. And so it allows you to step back from being a guitar player and be a little bit more of a producer. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Long enough description.
yeah. And reamping, I've done it plenty on my own, and it saves I mean, it's just such a lifesaver in so many ways. Like you said, auditioning amps, but it's kind of freaky. It's a little
Yeah.
bit scary because it sounds
Yeah.
like if you're in the studio and you're reamping an amp or a guitar, it basically means you're plugging your recorded dry guitar track through an amp later.
Hmm.
And so you'll be in the studio and you hit play and it's like, oh, that's me playing, but I'm not playing. And it's like there's a
Yeah.
ghost in the studio and you can manipulate it. It's pretty cool.
It
Um,
is. It is. And for anybody who's thinking about reamping at home, all I can say is make sure you get your levels right, because if that direct signal is too hot, it's all bad. And if
all
it's not,
bad. Yeah.
yeah. So take time to get your signal strength to the appropriate level, or you'll be very sad.
Yes. So I want to play the first song on Abandon All Hope. Not only is it an awesome song, but I just find the primary motif getting in my head just all the time. Several times a month, I'll be doing something and then it's da 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 da. You know, like I get it in my head, and I just think it's such a cool track. I think
Oh.
it's such a strong one to open with. So I didn't want to play it first because I want to make sure whoever's here gets to hear the whole thing. So any intro to Shadows that you'd like to provide?
No, you did a better job than I could.
All right, well, let's take a listen.
Thank you.
What a track. That is pretty epic. I don't
Oh.
know if you might want to go on the YouTube stream if you've got the bandwidth, but some people are leaving some great comments. Um,
Oh, let me see. Let me see if I can get on there.
yeah, Ocean Machine writes, I'm loving the track so far. The instrument dynamics also really stand out. The guitar is great. The modal ambiguity is tasteful. And that's something I really appreciate about your playing. You're just such a tasteful player. I never feel like you're doing anything excessive, but I know you're completely capable. So it's
Oh.
like your playing always serves the music from everything I've heard, even when you're doing the Zeppelin stuff. You know, like you put on a great show, but you're also very serious about doing well, and you're not trying to bring attention to yourself. You're trying to serve the music, which is very rare, I think, for lead guitarists. So definitely commendations to you there.
Oh,
Be-
that's like one of the biggest compliments I could ever imagine.
awesome.
Thank you.
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
people love the mix. Hearing some Steve Morse, hearing some, I said Steve Morse, Dixie Dregs, Michelangelo Badio, and Yngwie a little bit in that the arpeggiated, the sweep
Mm.
picking. So, can you comment a little bit about your approach to a hard rockin' song, serving the music without overplaying?
Oh, well, thanks. And thanks to everybody for the nice comments. Yeah, Steve Morris, Your Ears Do Not Deceive You is one of my first and most enduring inspirations. I discovered Ingve much later, but
Mm.
um, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's very easy to try to look at things from different perspectives, I think. Try to hear music, try to write music from the standpoint of the audience, try to compose music imagining that you have to hear it back. I think that the more I do it that way, the happier I am with the result. Um, I think a lot of times what is effective or what is interesting to me, I have very low tolerance um, for self-indulgence
Mm.
in an instrumentalist. I don't mind composers getting all geeky, but when it's somebody who's just gonna like shred all over something to the point where it's like, I don't know. One of the things I like most about Steve Morris is like he's got chops for days,
Uh-huh.
but he uses them so musically,
Uh-huh.
so musically.
Right.
He never just is like, now I'm gonna melt your face. It's always like, I feel like a lot of the ways he uses speed is like kind of like a little verbal aside,
Yeah.
where he'll be playing a melody and then he's like, you know,
It
and
just
you're like,
fell
wait, what
out.
was that? It
Yeah.
was some alternate picked like madness, but it's just more like this little connecting thing. Um, and it's just, I mean, what a monster player.
Oh
And so I
yeah.
think the way he has used speed and chops has really informed, I think, what I appreciate. Um,
So speaking of guitarists that you love and admire, Steve Morse is definitely awesome, but I wanna bring attention to a call out recently. Robert Fripp of King Crimson
Dude.
had checked out some of your stuff and was sharing it, and he's not the kind of guy who shares things for the sake of it. He was genuinely impressed. So I'd like to hear a little bit about your reaction to Robert
I'm
Fripp sharing that on his page.
well, I'm genuinely stunned. It was like I think I woke up to that text from you and I was like, wait, huh? Huh? Like, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to say. Sometimes I feel like when something is such a compliment, there's a little part of me that like resists fully letting it in. I don't know why. That's like, I mean, it's such a compliment, but I'm like, oh God, I don't know. I can't. It means so much to me. I don't really have the words to properly say that. It all I can say is that I think as guitarists, from what I've observed, more so than astrology or blood type or whatever, personality profiling people say, what I notice is that guitar players are some of the most self-critical people I've ever met.
Oh my goodness,
And
yes.
we're surrounded by such excellence every day from
Uh-huh.
so many people, from small children to like I mean, in all genres, it's such a beloved instrument that the level of virtuosity in all respects, the ceiling is so high that it's incredible that we don't just all sit around and hate ourselves all day long, because no matter how good you get, there's somebody who in some other capacity is so fantastic at that. Um, so spending so much of my time focusing on all the things that I totally suck at to ever have a moment where somebody I admire, like, superlatively,
Yeah.
doesn't mind my guitar playing is so insane.
Not even mildly inconvenienced.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't bum him out too much.
What's ironic is they're putting out a King Crimson documentary called Prog Rock Scum set to bum you out or something like that,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so can you talk a little about Fripp or maybe some other kind of off the beaten path types of guitarists that you admire and what you like about them, what got you into them?
Well, okay, so I first I discovered Adrian Ballou, and then that's what got me into some of, I always like to, for some reason, I like to trace lineage. It's always so amazing to me how many people will just like stop at one song or one album. Like, I get really geeky. The reason I got into, say, Jeff Beck was because Eric Johnson and Steve Morse would talk about how great Jeff Beck is. And so, yeah, tracing the lineage of people who were just really outside the box. Frank Zappa, mostly as a composer, but also as a guitar player. I mean, what a very recognizable sound.
Yeah, and totally underrated, like not recognized for his abilities on that instrument, for sure. Maybe by some guitarists, but just in general, people don't realize what an amazing guitarist he was.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And Dweezil, by the way, who I saw recently, is just slaying it.
Yeah.
I mean, so good live. Oh my God, so impressive. Yeah, so Zappa as well. It's so funny. I feel like when I discovered like Steve Morse and Eric Johnson, they were a little bit, they weren't the legends they are today. So they were like, when I was trying to shove them on all my friends, they wanted to listen to Pearl Jam, I'm like, listen to Django. What? Right now, I just recently got introduced to a guitar player named Steve Mackey. If you don't know Steve Mackey, I'm going to point you in that direction.
Yeah, please do.
So he's a composer of orchestral music. He's at Princeton University. He's a professor there. He's won like Kennedy Center honors and other very impressive sounding things. But he's his first instrument, or his main instrument's electric guitar. So he writes super crazy, out there, modern, like really salient compositions, but for orchestras, but also with electric guitar. And there's one called, I think it's Orpheus Unsung, that's just guitar and drums and is crazy. It's really,
awesome.
Really cool. So that's like, and we're doing a piece together.
Really?
I just recorded a piece that he wrote for the two of us for an event that's happening online called Another Night on Earth, where the idea is composers and guitar players from just like all over doing duets, like teaming up with people where like your schedules wouldn't normally permit, or your paths wouldn't normally cross. So I just recorded the weirdest thing I've ever recorded, and it was what he wrote, and it's just mind-bendingly cool.
Very
like
cool.
Like microtonal stuff and everything.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to hear it. Speaking of mind-bending stuff, this guy, Nahum666, asked about our practice routine. I will defer to you because I'm sure it's far more interesting. But I want to hear. Yeah, I'm more interested.
Yours.
I don't know.
You're a fantastic guitar player.
Thank you. What's
yours? I want to hear yours first.
I don't know. I shouldn't go first.
No?
No, you should go first.
You're going to shame me into... Okay.
No, it is not about that.
No, okay, so my practice routine changes based on what I have to do. If there's like a big project coming up, all of my focus will go on that. But I do try to keep a certain balance. And and it changes, it rotates. Something that I've recently landed on that I really like is and actually I've got it here in my geeky little day planner. So there we go.
All right.
So what I try to do is I aim to get like 4 hours a day of good practice, and then I might do like a recording project on top of that, or back when there used to be rehearsals, maybe a rehearsal on top of that.
Yeah.
Although I have to say that COVID's been great for practice. Travel is not so good for practice.
Yeah.
So I try to spend an hour a day working on projects, whatever those might be. It might be a guest solo. It might be like an upcoming lesson series, or whatever I've sort of got on my plate. I try to do an hour of growth. So working on things that I absolutely positively cannot do, and that's like the hardest hour. Sometimes it's exciting, but normally that's the one where I really kick my own butt. and then I'll do like an hour of review, which sometimes becomes projects or writing. Review is, I just try to keep material current in my mind, so I'm not always having to relearn stuff. And then I try to do at least an hour of writing. And then on top of that, away from the instrument, I try to do like today, like, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch videos about counterpoint, or I'll work on compositional stuff or whatever. So that's what I aim for each day.
Well, that's awesome. I would say I don't have much of a practice routine anymore. I used to practice, honestly, in high school, I was doing a minimum of 6 hours every day, and then I would practice 12 hours a day as often as possible. And then in college, I had more of what you were just talking about. I would do 2 to 4 hours every day. A lot of classical, mostly classical in college, nylon string guitar. I still keep nails. I still play a lot of stuff with my fingers. And in fact, if I could just really have my way, I would just stop playing with the pick altogether. There's this guy, Andre Nieri, who plays with Virgil Donati. And he does...
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. He'll do sweep picking with his, with his fingers, and he's an unbelievable player. But now I have kids. My daughter's on the couch here. I have 2 other boys, and then I work a full-time day job, and I run this Make Weird Music channel. So now most of my practice is project-based, and kind of like Henry Kaiser. I don't know if you know him.
I do. Actually, he and my dad are good buddies.
What?
I should have mentioned Henry Kaiser as a weird.
That's funny. Yeah, he's awesome. I'm supposed to have him on the site. He was here for Christmas, and we just couldn't line our schedules up. But anyway, yeah, he just doesn't practice. He just picks up the guitar to do things. And I feel like I've done so much practicing, and I don't have huge musical ambitions. There are songs I need to record. They're in my head. So most of my musical work happens compositionally on the computer. I don't write on the guitar. I write on the computer, so it gets me out of guitar thinking. Mm-hmm. And I usually just try to surprise myself with something different through my composition. And I'll try to challenge myself, like, okay, what would it sound like if so-and-so from this band was writing this section? Or like I have a few Bach pieces. One of them I arranged in 13/8, and I thought, well, okay, what would this sound like in 13 instead of 16, beats? And then it's in 5/4. So I like to I'll look at manuscripts, and just try to reimagine things. And then I try rearranging, like I've got this Conlon Nancaro piece I think I've talked to you about it before. It's an impossible player piano piece, but that I arranged for 3 9-string guitars.
So, you did tell me that.
Yeah, I do a lot of, I just try to find things that to me are interesting, challenging, and musically fun. But I can never remember everything, so I notate everything. Everything I play, except for an improvised solo, obviously. Everything just goes into, I start in MuseScore or SoundSlice, which is an online sheet music editor, and I just write my music there. So yeah, not much on the guitar,
Wow.
but when I'm practicing, like a Fripp piece, all I play for weeks is the Fripp piece, with a metronome or just next to a clock, that's ticking. You can hear the clock every second. So I'll do 60 BPM and then 90 BPM by doing like dotted eighths. And then,
oh my God, that's so wonderfully geeky.
yeah. And then 120. So that's my kind of routine. We've talked a lot. I want to play another piece, and then I want to get people to buy your music. And if people want to get ahead of the message, there's 2 URLs at the bottom of the screen. The one that has gretchenmenn.bandcamp.com, that's the place to go. So please, if you like what you're hearing musically today and from Gretchen, go there and purchase. So Gretchen, let's listen to something on Hail Souls.
Okay.
Do you have a song in particular that you'd like to feature?
You should decide whatever you think your listeners would most relate to.
All right. How about Is It Not Strange?
Oh my God, I haven't heard that like seriously in years. Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Just such a cool piece.
Oh, thank you.
When you're doing those kinds of arrangements, do you do this in the computer? Or are you doing it by hand or what?
I find I usually use Sibelius. I mean, I do have, I got this here, right?
Yeah.
Working out harmonies for a new piece. But normally I find it pretty expedient to work in Sibelius, just because then you have your score ready. You don't have to
Right.
prepare it after.
Yeah.
And also it's nice, especially like for working out more complex counterpoint and things like that. My piano skills are, so trying to actually hear things in real time and objectively, it's nice to have the playback as well. I strive to get better at audiation, just like being able to hear a score in my head, but other than pretty simple, straightforward stuff or things that are familiar, like it's just better to have the playback.
Right. Right. Okay. So you brought up some sheet music. I want people to know what you do with sheet music because, like me, it doesn't just sit on a shelf when you buy it. You read it and you write on it and you think about it. So talk about your approach to looking through sheet music and maybe some of the composers that you enjoy their scores the most and why.
Oh, that's such a great question. Um, so first, or the last question first, composers that I enjoy a lot and why. I mean, you've got the obvious ones. I mean, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, particularly for string quartets, um, which is basically what you just heard was my turning guitars into a string quartet, like trying to respect the registers of the cello, the violin, the viola, within guitars. So I really love Mozart for that, for quartets, and also things, any classical forms. I mean, okay, let me not get too off topic here. So in addition to the really obvious huge guys who really are that good, I love Ravel recently, like super love Ravel.
Yeah.
I can't get over his string quartet. It's so good. And like you with your Robert Fripp pieces, I might get into a piece of music and that might be all I listen to for easily a week. Or I might like listen to it and read the score every day for, or a few times a week for a couple months. I'll revisit it often. I love Lily Boulanger. You know her? She's she was contemporary with Debussy and Ravel, and that French impressionistic school that I love very much. I love that kind of semi-tonality, where that the non-functional tonality,
right,
is really interesting to me. I think in large part because I can't do it yet, and, so I'm trying to get my mind around it a little bit more. So I enjoy looking at and studying Ravel and Debussy and Lily Boulanger for expanding myself and challenging myself. Mozart, Beethoven, like the classical style, the Baroque style, those are more graspable to me from like a formal structure, from tonality, harmonically. So when you're when I'm looking at a score, you can look at all sorts of different things, like so many different things. You can look at it from a harmonic perspective. Sometimes I'll get into a place where I'm like, I need some new harmonic inspiration. And so I'll go through a score and I'll listen for passages that I particularly like the harmonic movement. I will circle it, I will steal it, and I'll try to write something with that harmonic progression. Sometimes, I'll change the meter, or I'll try not to actually completely rip it off, but I might be like, hey, I love this section.
Yeah.
So I'll analyze it and then try to see if I can write with it. Writing for me is a huge part of my kind of digesting of a new concept. You look at it from a formal structure. I feel like that's something that is so overlooked in the writing of instrumental music by today's standards. I mean, not to say there's anything wrong with traditional song structure, but I feel like if you're writing instrumental music and you have not ever written in sonata form, you're missing out.
Totally.
Like, there's a reason that it was so beloved for so long by so many composers. And so highly recommend anybody interested in that, in instrumental music, pay attention to structure. Structure can be incredibly freeing, because you can break, if you're saying I'm going to write in sonata form and you're like, actually, I don't want to go to the dominant this time. Don't, nobody's going to get you in trouble.
Right.
But it gives you a framework. I mean, just like with paintings, it's nice to know how big your canvas is, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Borders are.
Yeah. A friend of mine he still has a master's degree in guitar performance. They didn't revoke it, no. And I sat down with him and he said, how do you read these scores? And I say, well, I just kind of think about each part kind of one at a time. And he's like, but it's not meant to be that way. Like every vertical slice fits, like it's its own thing, like a measure is its own thing, not the measure of violin 1 and then the next measure and then, it's not meant to be read that way. You read it vertically and straight through. And so he had me go through and just label all the chords with the Roman numerals. This is the 1, this is the 5, this is the dominant, whatever. So that was such an interesting experience. So now when I pick up sheet music, I'll listen along with the score, and then I'll have the guitar and just try to play through some of the chords. Just look at the most music's diatonic. So you just look at the key signature and then try figuring out the chords. I'm curious if you do any sort of sit with the guitar and analyze, and beyond just copy and steal. Like how are you doing analysis?
So I usually don't do it with the guitar, but I might now. I'm not so great. I confess I'm fine with alto clef. I'm not so great with transposing instruments. So I will often just kind of look at like the string section and then, like the non-transposing winds and be like, okay, the key signature. That is an area that I have yet to
it's hard.
Fully invest myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll sort of look on strong beats and do a harmonic analysis that way. And what I would say the benefit that I found, because I understand it's easy to sometimes like follow one instrument in the score, and that's useful if you're looking at how to write for an instrument. If you're curious about registers,
right.
If you're curious about things that are playable, that was something that was really important to me on Abandon All Hope, was to try to write things that were idiomatically correct for instruments. So to pay attention to what would the fingering be of this passage on violin, and if I have this note versus this note, does that make it much easier? Does it make it much more difficult to understand that the strings have their own different characters, and to be able to hear that and to see how, like Mozart, wow, this note that looks like it's, in the stratosphere sounds gorgeous in singing, or to pay attention to things of like, wait, what's that moment that I love so much? And to be like, oh man, it's all this particular type of doubling is beautiful, like this oboe with this first violin or whatever. To notice the sections that I particularly love too.
Right.
So, but in terms of like, gosh, it's like there's no end to what you can learn from listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. I bought the Holst score for the Planets.
I got it.
And just the intro, the first 30 seconds, where the violins are all playing the same 3 notes, but it's like a different sequence on each instrument. And you look at it and you're like, this is going to be a mess. But then you listen to it and it's not a mess. It's incredible. And that, it's not just the dynamics, but just all of the colors of each instrument complementing each other. And it's so easy when you're trapped in computer land to think, oh, well, everything is a piano. Like that's how my sounds are set. When I get started, everything's a piano. But then when you actually play, or when you really listen and appreciate, this composer knew exactly how this violin, this viola, and this cello playing the same 3 notes would play together in this sequence. So I can't encourage people enough. If you can get sheet music for modern albums, just get it. Miles Davis, Avishai Cohen, jazz, classical, whatever it is, pick it up and then listen to the album with the sheet music. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's one of the most enjoyable experiences is to listen to music with the sheet music. There's so much more. I mean, and it isn't just the sheet music, but to fully engage when listening to music. Music has become so much like a backing track for normal life. And it's not to say it's not enjoyable. It can be lovely to go to the grocery store and listen to an album you like, but how often do do you really sit down and make the time to fully engage with music? And yet the rewards for doing so are are just unspeakably beautiful, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I'm a proofreader on the new King Crimson transcriptions book. And
Are you
so,
really?
yeah, so I am going through every guitar and stick and drum part and bass part. And I'm like, okay, yeah, the guy who's doing most of the, well, there's two guys, Trey Gunn and Gabe Riccio, just picking apart the three big 80s albums, Discipline, Beat, and Three of a Perfect Pair. And Gabe and I and Trey are like saying, well, I think Robert plays this note on the G string, not on the D string, you know? And I think Adrian's doing this at the fourth fret, or he's got a capo on the second, you know, like
Oh my God.
it's so
Yes.
awesome to just get so deep into this music. So really looking forward to that coming out. But yeah, it's just a whole other experience when you're really diving in and like King Crimson didn't notate anything. So this is the first time it's in, print. So it'll be very cool.
That's amazing. Wow.
It should be a great project.
You're a certified badass. That's so impressive.
I'm gonna clip that little part of your interview out, and I'm going to reuse that everywhere.
Oh, I was like, oh no, that's not that bad.
No. I'm gonna hand it in.
Overly potty mouth.
Next time I apply for a job, I'm just gonna say, just listen to this from Gretchen Menn.
I can definitely say having like a child in the screen is helping me keep my my potty mouth at bay. It's like, oh yeah, don't. Okay.
She's not even real. It's just computer graphics.
Yeah,
I did that because I knew.
Yeah, you knew. I have a reputation for swearing like a sailor.
All right, so we are out of time, but everyone, please, Bandcamp on this Friday, they are giving 100% of the proceeds, all of the revenue, to the artists. So go out there and buy lots of stuff on Bandcamp. Buy all of Gretchen's stuff. That's an order. That's a command. And she will get 100% of the revenue. Bandcamp normally takes a slice of the music or of the revenue. But it's the only place that you can buy music online where the artist gets a big majority of the payment. They control their rights. They don't get slices of pennies for, streams. Spotify bad, Bandcamp good. So, well, it's not that Spotify's bad, but for artists, Bandcamp is the way to go. So please go to gretchenmenn.bandcamp.com. You've seen the 2 CDs I've got when we're listening to music, Abandon All Hope and Hail Souls, both awesome albums. Do you have other merchandise or anything that you sell on your Bandcamp?
Well, on my website, I have also posters that benefit various charities. So one that benefits disaster relief, one that benefits rescue animals, and one that benefits St. Jude's Children's Hospital and the Starlight Foundation, which are benefiting like sick kids. Figure we can all agree on those things, right?
I think so. I hope so.
Gosh, I hope so.
We're going to get canceled.
Exactly. All those people who want to kill cats are going to come for me. So I've got posters that benefit various charities. Also, if anybody does like the Bandcamp, what I like about them, not just from a revenue perspective, but they allow me to upload my album artwork. And so for Abandon All Hope, it's meant to be enjoyed or digested as a full concept album. So there's like a storyline and an image that goes with each piece. And Michael Melenda did the libretto text, and Max Crace did these images that are just really stunning. So that gets included as a PDF on Bandcamp, or if anybody still has a CD player, my website, just gretchenmenn.com. I ship them out, I sign them, and you get a thank you card too.
Right on. Yeah. So gretchenmenn.com, that's on the bottom right of the screen, gretchenmenn.bandcamp.com on the lower left. Gretchen, thank you so much for all of your time, and really thank you for the people watching the stream. It's been really nice to see so much great conversation, and thank you for supporting great artists. So, Gretchen, thanks again. I hope you have a good night.
Thank you so much. You are just like the best interviewer. It's so much fun. I'm still waiting for us to do like a Holst collaboration or something.
I know
like
it's on my mind. I promise you, it will happen.
It will.
It will.
I mean, now's the time. But
Now
you
is
just
the
let me know.
time.
You've got a few more like kids and stuff. I've just got cats.
Well, cats can be difficult too.
Oh my God, they're so needy now.
All right, let's close on. What do you think? Hail Souls or Abandon All Hope?
Well, Abandon All Hope is more recent, so.
Okay. All right.
Something from that.
Let's close on Hound of Hades.
Oh, okay. Yes.
All right, cool. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.